Getting people to help in your company is absolutely one of the most critical and important things you can do to grow your business. Sure, we love great software and we love other things, technology that can scale, but at some point there's humans that need to be helping us. And that's where outsourcing comes into place. So I brought on an expert in this area to help you figure out three things. One, what are the tasks that you can hire? Second, how to go through the hiring process and spotting those red flags. And third, managing the people that you do hire. Those are three really big pieces. And we're not getting into all of the details of those, but I bring on Mackenzie, who is one of the leaders over on the FreeUp platform. And I brought her on specifically because that is a platform that I know, that I like, and I trust. We've spent a lot of money and a lot of time on that platform. So I wanted to bring on an actual real relationship. One of the things that was really special about bringing on Mackenzie is having that expert to help you. And one thing that we'll also do is provide a lot of resources, templates, and material that will help you speed up the learning curve. I don't expect you to know every single thing about outsourcing in this interview, but what is best is to take action. And from this conversation, I know you'll be able to take action right away. So let's dive into this conversation, chat with Mackenzie, and find out exactly what you can do so that you can continue to grow your business. Mackenzie, thanks for joining me today on the podcast.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
We had you on specifically because you and the company that you're with are absolute experts at helping business owners solve a serious problem. And we're going to talk about three pieces of that problem today, which is deciding what tasks to outsource, how to find the right outsourcer, and then how to manage that outsourcer. Of course, like we're not going to get to the details of every single piece because that's like crazy and it's a lot of work.
No.
But at least I think we may be able to shave, could be years, months, weeks off of someone's learning curve through this conversation today. As we were talking before the interview, you've been able to set the stage on a few things. And so from your expertise, where is it that we should start this conversation that'll help business owners when they're approaching that outsourcing world or when they're optimizing the outsourcing world?
Yeah, for sure. So I think it's really going to depend. I think there's kind of two routes to take when it comes to hiring, and it depends a lot on where the business owner is at the current stage of their business. I think a lot of when you're looking at hiring, there's kind of two types of freelancers you can hire, right? You have the expert level consultant type of freelancers. And then you have more of your everyday freelancers who are part of your team that are virtual assistants that are helping with basic production and everyday tasks that you just need to get off of your plate. So, when determining what to hire first and how that connects to the different stage of your business, when a business is first starting, or if you've hit a growth lag or you're just stagnating, I think that's where you're going to probably want to focus a little bit on the consultant work because you're looking to enter a growth mode, which you need help learning more, changing up processes, changing something. You're either getting started or you're stuck. Now, if you're in hyper growth mode, things are just taking off and you feel overwhelmed and you don't have enough time to catch up with stuff. That's going to be where you need to focus a little bit more on the virtual assistant side, maybe even just social media, graphic designer, those everyday tasks that you or even your higher level team members don't currently have the time to do that need to get off of your plates.
And do you find it often that when, depending on that growth curve, the business owners not quite sure, and are they often handing off the wrong tasks, or are they too overwhelmed that they just really can't see what are the most important things to do?
I do think so. Happens a lot that sometimes business owners, they get to the point where they're waking up every day, going through the motions, and they don't really take a planning period or take a step back, list out everything you have going on, and then figure out what to delegate. And doing that, I think, is really important for starting to identify some of those pain points.
So we understand there's a lot of mix to it of figuring out if you're going to hire a consultant or if you're going to hire the freelancer or maybe even a virtual team member. Then you have that next stage of, okay, I have to actually find them and interview them and make sure that they're good. Share your expertise with us.
Yeah, for sure. I've been hiring people for 10 or more years, both in offices and freelancers. And obviously, a big part of it comes down to first, you have to figure out what it is that you're exactly looking in a team member. How are you wanting to grow your company? What type of culture do you want to have? What tasks need to be done? When it comes to freelancers and finding the first freelancer, obviously, there are a lot of different marketplaces out there. However, you're going to be left sifting through a ton of different freelancers, right? You're going to submit a job request and you're going to get 100 plus freelancers back to you that you then have to figure out which one is going to be best on top of actually interviewing them, making sure they're a real person and all of that as well. That's where we tried to change the game and help to save as much time as possible for the business owner. In order for freelancers to get onto the FreeUp platform, they go through a very extensive pre-vetting process to one, make sure they're a real person because that happens in the freelancer world. And then we also verify their qualifications, that they actually have freelancing experience. They do a video interview with us as well to make sure that they have great communication skills. And then after that, just to get on the platform, then if they actually want to request a job that you're actually submitting, we then do another round of verification to make sure that they have the specific skill sets for the job that the client is submitting as well. So there's actually 2 rounds of kind of verification just to get on the platform in general, and then for the client's actual job. It takes us a lot of time, but that's why we have clients constantly coming back to us, because it's that amount of time that you're saving. And then on top of that, just if you reach out to us personally, we'll get on the phone with you and try. If you're struggling to find someone, we will even go out and recruit for you. So it's all of those things that so many people struggle with when it comes to hiring, that we really do try to take on the role of a hiring manager, more or less, if that makes sense.
Okay, that totally makes sense. And to give our listeners context to this, I've been using the FreeUp platform for quite a while now. I don't know if it's been, maybe it has actually been years. It has been years. Wow.
Years.
Yeah. And we do a significant amount of volume through it and we enjoy the platform. So I'm not just having this conversation with someone because I think it's cool or because I've heard about it, actually using it. And when you mentioned finding someone that's real, that's actually doing the work, is legit, because in many cases I have seen stuff you hire on Fiverr and it's supposed to be like a US worker and you're like, there's no way that just happened.
Yep.
So you listed it out perfectly. So we've touched on maybe some of the tasks, and I'm sure we'll weave into that. We've talked about the filtering that you guys do as far as a company. I would say there's so much to learn in there. Would the best bet for our listeners that are saying, I need to hire someone, is the best bet for them to just jump on and hire and then learn through trial by fire? Or are you saying have them go through a certain process? What works best? What have you found?
So it depends. If you've hired freelancers before, then you probably know what you're doing and you can go ahead and submit a job request. If you haven't, I always recommend scheduling a consultation with one of our account managers, because we'll talk to you about where your business is at, what you're looking for in a specific freelancer, and we'll help to walk you through that process. That way you're set up for success. Now, if you have hired before, we'll still provide you that same exact support, but it really just depends on how fast you're needing to go and then what that learning curve is and how much help you need through that learning curve.
Okay, cool. So now that we've covered that, what is that next phase? You've now hired the person. If they pass all of the qualifications and there's no red flags, and you have to manage them and it's long term, and you got to make sure that you're having a great relationship and you're both exceeding each other's expectations. Talk to us about that for a moment.
Yeah. So a lot of that comes down to setting the expectations right away. And that's where I think if you're not sure what you need from a freelancer, jump on a call with us because we can help you determine what that is. Because having those initial conversations in the job request that you submit, how many hours are going to be worked, what needs to actually be done, what time of day do you need them to work, and then talking through even more in your interview with them. It's going to be so important for setting the relationship up for success. That way the freelancer knows what they're getting into as well, and that they can fully support you in what you're needing. Now, once you're getting into the initial part of things, having KPIs, all of that set up and documented and then easily accessible for the freelancers, really important. And it also helps to save you time too. It takes a lot of time to do up front, but in the long run, it'll save you time because when they ask you a question, you can send them a document versus having to have a bunch of conversations. And then one of the things that I like to talk about a lot when it comes to, effectively managing freelancers, because a lot of people always say, oh, I spend more time managing my freelancers. I could have just done the task myself, is the idea of having your freelancer self report. I love this. So if you're at the point where you only have 2, 3 freelancers, you're the one working directly with them. You don't have a full team. You don't have managers. Creating some type of self report. We do have a template that we can help people with, but a self report where the freelancers are reporting what they're doing every single week. This is how much I was able to get done. This is how many hours I billed. And then this is my favorite part. These are the roadblocks that I ran into. So if they had any issues, if anything weird came up that they saw, and then also these are any questions I have, any potential process improvements. Everyone always says the key to successful management or working with a freelancer is always going to be communication. So it's setting up those avenues for them to be able to effectively communicate and talk about what's going on. For the long road, because most of the time you do want to have a long-term relationship with a freelancer, starting that from day one is so helpful. And then you also have on file, and they have on file everything that's being done all the time.
Okay, that makes sense. So talk to us a little bit more because you're mentioning setting up the basic questions. And what we do in
Yep.
our company is hey, what did you accomplish? Or actually, it works like this. The first question is, what did you accomplish last week? What are you going to accomplish this week? And then what kind of challenges or roadblocks did you face?
Yep.
And so this comes down to those 3 questions. Sometimes we get good answers. Sometimes we don't. When we do get the good answers, meaning, and by good answers, it's like giving us context and details. If it's like,
Mhm.
what did you accomplish? And it's just like A, B, and C. What are you going to accomplish A, B, and C? And then it's like, do you have roadblocks and challenges? And it's, no, everything was great. You're like, that doesn't help. I want context. I'm not in the weeds. I'm not in the day to day because we have operators that run various companies. But for our listeners, maybe they're not in that place. So how can we help get more context, more details? How can we pull that out so that we can really coach and grow?
Yeah, so I think a lot of that comes from when you do audits. So if someone's not giving you really great responses, that means that you need to audit the work that they're doing because then you can start directly point out to them, hey, these are the things that I would love to hear about when we're having these conversations or you're giving these reports. And also just setting the expectations too. I think sometimes there can be, you know, whether it's cultural differences, someone's just shy, whatever that might be, making sure they feel open and comfortable to expressing those positions. Because I have run into that personally before. You have freelancers where you have to break down that wall. They feel like they want to make sure that you're happy, which is great. I love that, right? Like that's what we want. We want to have a symbiotic relationship where we're making each other happy. However, that doesn't mean we can't talk about the issues that they are facing because I need to know what's happening in order to help you. So it can take some time. I do think it takes some trust, but from a coaching standpoint, doing those audits and then showing those specific examples of what you want to see, I found to be really helpful.
Okay, really good. We've covered like a pretty good foundation piece, and I think it's been really helpful. I want to switch gears for a moment and think in the business growth phase of things. So you're an expert at this. And now that we've covered the basics, and here's for you listeners, this would be my roadmap. If you're at a point where you're struggling and you're trying to get your revenue up, hire people to do things that are going to get you there. If you're at a point where you're too busy and you need to grow, then you need to hire. So like regardless, hire, get that outsourced as soon as possible, get team members, get leverage on it. So now I want to take the conversation to the growth side of things. So I would imagine since you've watched over accounts, help people, you've probably seen some companies have significant growth once they start doing this.
Yep.
Can you give us some case stories? If you need to leave some anonymity to it, that's fine. I would love to hear
Yeah.
what you've seen from your side of the curtain versus maybe what some of our listeners would typically hear on a podcast.
No, I think that's great. I think I've just even experienced it myself in our own internal companies with hiring, right? Because we work with freelancers ourselves and you physically cannot do it all. You're going to get to a certain point in revenue where you can't do it all yourself. And even if you're hiring someone part time, whatever that might look like, And once you start to let go of that control and be able to outsource it to someone else, it then frees up your time to be able to focus on the things that you're personally the best at. Every business owner is different, right? Some business owners are great at marketing, some are great at product development, whatever that looks like. But you have to be able to outsource the other parts and hire for the other parts if you want to be able to continue to grow. From a case study standpoint, we can use you as a case study. But no, it's true. Just once you start hiring, you'll be able to have more resources to invest in marketing and invest in your sales team and all of those things that are proven and required to drive business growth.
Okay. Yeah. Let's take my company as an example. I think if almost every company that I have started, actually no, not almost every company that I've started, it's me at the very beginning. And I'm the one that's noodling on the idea, and I'm gonna go through, and it depends on what that period is of like how far I'm gonna go down the rabbit hole of working on that idea. And then in that time period means that it may just be work that's in my head. And then I'll collaborate and get people involved. The goal is to get myself removed as soon as possible. And it's not because I'm so important. It is not because my time is so valuable or any of that other stuff. In fact, I cringe when I hear business owners, I'm worth X amount of dollars an hour. And I'm like, dude, knock it off. That's how I feel at least. I do it because there are people that actually enjoy the outsourced things. So have you seen that as well, where there's business owners, they love maybe coming up scheming with an idea, a growth plan or whatever it is. And then there are people that just love to execute it. You've probably seen that side as well.
No, absolutely. And it's funny because I'm the same way, but from like in our own internal company, right? Like I love coming up with the next new idea, product idea, and then you build it out and you then delegate it to someone else. And then you're on to the next things that grow the business overall. And I agree with you in that it's not because a business owner's time is so valuable, but it's also if your personal skill set is the ideation phase of things, then let's keep ideating, right? If you're bringing the people who are good at executing and keep on ideating. And then to follow up with that too, one thing I've learned for myself, I like to get other people involved because especially if you can get someone in there who can voice their opinions, they're going to come in with different ideas too and other ways to grow or things that aren't working. They're going to be able to see things that you can't. And that will actually help your business over time as well.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some of the mistakes that people are making in either one of those three phases? Meaning, we're talking about the deciding what to hire, or the hiring, or in the phase of managing it. And I know that is like the biggest, most broad question out there, but I ask it broadly because there's probably like some red flag that you're like, whoa, like I wish that I would have told my friend that's starting a company this thing. What does that look like? If you have one, two, or three things that might be helpful.
For me, it's all down to communication. I mentioned that before, but communicating with freelancers or having the infrastructure for communication. So in the hiring phase, already talked about that. Super clear with expectations, what you're wanting, what you're needing, goes all the way back to the job description, right? Sometimes a big red flag for me is when I see a job description that's requesting 20 different skill sets all in one person, and it just shows that they don't really know what it is that they're needing at this time and that they need some help clarifying that. And then once they're actually hired, the having a strong communication line open. And where I see people start to fail is not understanding that eventually your team is going to grow and you're going to need leaders and some infrastructure. Once you get beyond 4 or 5 freelancers, you physically can't manage all those freelancers yourself. It's not going to happen. You can't also run your business. You have to start building out some type of leadership. That way they feel fully supported, and they have someone to go to and they still have a direct line of communication, but it's not weighing too much down on you as well. And you can still focus on ideating, growing your business, whatever that strength might be as well. Those are probably the 2 main ones.
Okay. What are some of the examples of like rocket ships that you've just seen take off in the platform? There's probably a few companies out there that just click. They're like hiring at the right time. Would love to hear some of those growth things that you've seen.
Yeah, for sure. I can't give specific, like, company names just for
Yeah, I don't want that.
confidentiality
Yeah.
reasons, but it's always gonna be e-commerce, right? Because e-commerce, you usually already know how to communicate virtually, most people who are working in e-commerce. Amazon sellers, anything that's reselling things too, eBay, Walmart, Poshmark even. We have so many different sellers that just come to us for help with scalability, and it helps to build things out so quickly on their end. I think the reason for that is because within those different seller platforms, there's a little bit of infrastructure that's already actually set up, which I think is really helpful when working directly with freelancers versus a company that is still completely off of Google Sheets or whatever that might be. It may be a little bit more difficult to fully have a freelancer fully learn and know your own infrastructure. It may take a little bit of time. So yeah, I think when you're looking at those e-commerce platforms, that's when it goes really fast because you have freelancers who already know Amazon and then they come in and they just take off and it takes maybe a day.
Yeah, you mentioned that. I think what I'm perceiving, what comes down from that is that there is a repeatable and scalable process. And I think too often business owners are customizing everything in their company. So they're treating every single situation, if it's an agency or a consultancy or a dev shop or whatever it is, they're looking at it and say, okay, all right, let me attack this problem. And they approach it as just like, that's the first and only time that problem's happened. Whereas like e-commerce is like, hey, like we're going to make everyone feel special, but it's actually repeatable and scalable.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. No, you hit the nail on the head is having some type of repeatable process that can be followed. It's very easy to outsource.
Okay. And then one of the things, as you mentioned, as you're talking about Amazon sellers or whatever it is, the former owner of FreeUp, Nate
Yeah, yeah.
Hirsch, he would often say that when you're hiring an outsourcer, freelancer, whatever you want to call it, if whatever the job you're hiring for, you again don't want to be hiring someone trying to fill 20 different positions. Like it's never going to happen. But you also want to look at someone that has some kind of common thread. So for example, if it's you're looking to hire someone to do customer support in Amazon for a car part, then you want to find someone that's already got experience with Amazon and customer support, and maybe you have to train them on car parts. Or they are a master at car parts and they're a master at customer support, but you're going to teach them the Amazon platform. But like they really should have two of those three. If not, like it's going to be quite a bit of time. You've probably seen the same happen across the board for multiple owners.
Yes, for sure. So it's gonna happen a lot when people are in a specific niche at what you're saying, car parts, medical, whatever that might be. You may be able to find someone who has a general background in it, but sometimes you see things that are so specific. That's actually just what you should be training them on. That red flag for us. It goes back to that original job description, right? When I see something that is requesting 20 different skill sets, it's going to be a red flag because there's either a lack of expectations that we need to help set and walk them through, or just they're not gonna be able to find the right person, and then, they're gonna end up frustrated.
Yeah, for sure. We've covered a lot on this show. Truly, one, I'm not throwing an affiliate link that I have. Maybe we'll find something special and get a report or something helpful for you guys that hasn't been created. The reason for doing this interview for all of you listeners is so that it helps you grow your business. I've too often I'll have people reach out through email or whatever it may be, and they're like, "Man, I need to grow. I know I'm at this position where I need more time." And without a doubt, I'm always like, "Go hire." And I say there's two places to always go for. If you want someone long term, then go to FreeUp.
Mhm.
If you just need something done really quickly, go to Fiverr. Fiverr's great in some cases. Like you gotta hire, at least for me, even to this day, the way I use Fiverr is if there is something for specific, if I'm
Yep,
getting some data scraped or whatever, I may
yep.
hire three different people to do the same job because I know that I might get one of them that's good. Whereas when you hire someone from FreeUp and you're working, you've got a team member that you're going to be using for years and years, hopefully.
Yep. Yeah, no, and for anyone who's listening on the podcast today, I will send you over that kind of report template. We've used that in the past, and I think it's super helpful for people who are working with freelancers. And then anyone who's listening to the podcast today too can get 50 free credits when they sign up and hire for the first time.
That's cool. Very cool. We'll make sure to put that inside of the description for the episode. I'm going to ask one final question, which is, what questions should I have asked you that we didn't cover on the podcast?
Oh, that's like that's a hard question. I have not gotten that question on a podcast before. I think we honestly covered a lot of it. We covered the job request, trying to figure out what to hire for, interviewing a little bit, and then also managing in the long run. From a question standpoint, there's so much you can go into in regards to, oh, what platforms should you use for communication, whatever that might be. But when we're looking at the general overview of things, I think we covered a lot of it. My main thing that I just always nail in is set expectations and communicate. That's pretty much the name of the game and the overarching.
Perfect. For listeners, I'm going to give you specifics. I'm going to bucket things. I don't typically do this. But if your business revenue is sub 100,000 gross, then you need to outsource someone that is going to help you get there. Contact FreeUp and find out what that looks like. It's probably going to be some side of market. If you're not good at marketing, more than likely it's going to be them taking off some kind of tasks. If you are past that revenue number, then you absolutely need to hire and free up more of your time. So regardless of whatever that circumstance is, do it and do it fast. My experience has been great. I think I get a call from the FreeUp team at least once a month. Like they're calling and like they really care. And there's emails that are outreach. Do it and you won't regret it. And then we'll make sure we put all those resources in the show notes. I hope this episode was helpful for you as a listener. If you're at that point where it's time to hire, go and do it. Even if you're just spending a small budget, right now is the best time to grow. We're seeing a shakeup in the industry. It's a little bit more difficult to find really good talent. Some business categories are having challenges, and consumer positivity is on somewhat of a roller coaster. But for you, for growing your business, it should not be. Right now is a time when you need to ramp up and you need to hit it hard. So what you can do is make sure that you're going to take action. If you do have any questions, please reach out to Mackenzie, someone over there on that hiring process. If you do have questions for me, feel free to give me a shout out. You can go to @SpencerShaw on Twitter and I can respond there. And for all of you other listeners, thank you for following this show. We really do appreciate it. We're trying to put out content that will be helpful for you, and we hope that you continue to grow your business.